From our studios in Caracas, Venezuela, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Let's begin. We start in Venezuela. President Nicolás Maduro strongly condemned what he says were orders given by the United States to Bogotá to carry out an assassination. He spoke at the closing event of the Workers' Congress.
You know that, don't you? They have given the order from the White House to kill Maduro. Not a hair will touch me because God protects me and protects the people of Venezuela. And they have given the oligarchy of Bogotá the task of killing me.
Trade unions and workers from various sectors presented proposals at the Congress in a bid to boost economic growth as part of Venezuela's recovery program.
I come to ask workers that all these proposals have informed that 2025 Homeland Plan for the working class and keep it alive. Once and for all, brothers and sisters, I believe that these guidelines hold the power of positive transformation, and the Homeland Plan must contain at least 3 components from the working class. Economic transformation is a priority.
In Brazil, candidate Jair Bolsonaro has skipped the first TV debate before the October 28th runoff. Bolsonaro's medical team says he's still in recovery from a near-fatal stabbing and in no condition to participate. However, the candidate has already been featured in TV interviews and kicked off campaign events. Bolsonaro spent weeks in the hospital after the September 6th stabbing. His political rival Fernando Haddad says he's willing to go to the hospital if necessary to face off with him. Meanwhile, Bolsonaro's doctors say he will have another physical examination on October 18th, and a decision will be made then on whether he will be able to participate in the remaining debates. Our correspondent André Vieira in Rio has the details.
The candidate of the far-right, Jair Bolsonaro, is not going to participate once again in the debates of Brazil, alleging health problems. Today, for example, was scheduled the first debate for the second round of the presidential elections. Haddad said that if necessary, the debate will be done from hospital. In addition to not participating in the debates, Bolsonaro is being criticized for alleged criminal behaviors on the part of his continent, such as kidnapping and violent acts on the streets. Meanwhile, Fernando Haddad continues to fight for his government project and even revoke measures against the people that took place in previous times.
That was André Vieira from Brazil. And while Bolsonaro is skipping the debate, he was able to attend his first public event since the initial round of voting was held on Sunday. Bolsonaro attended a news conference in Rio de Janeiro after a meeting with his Social Liberal Party. He spoke about his plans to unite the country, but in the past, Bolsonaro has made comments demeaning women and the black community.
We will unite Brazil, white and black, gays and heteros, fathers and sons, north and south, men and women. We'll unite our Brazil and pacify it.
A famous capoeira master has been buried in Brazil after he was killed by supporters of Bolsonaro. Moa do Catendê was stabbed to death after a public forum where he expressed his support for the Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad. Several cases of violence against left-wing voters were reported after the first round of the presidential election. Several artists denounced the barbarity of this murder.
We cannot reduce Brazil to this barbaric thing. The murder of Moado Katende is a sign that one shouldn't forcefully follow in the way that other people blindly think. It is backwards. It is fear of responsibility in civilization.
On to Colombia, where another social leader has been killed, this time in the Putumayo region. The leader of a farming association, Otto Valenzuela, was allegedly shot dead in his home. His murder was reported immediately, but police authorities said they couldn't reach the area. 4 social leaders and 3 indigenous leaders have been murdered in less than 48 hours in Colombia. Our correspondent, Paola Fernandez, tells us more.
Killings of social leaders continue in Colombia. 170 leaders have been murdered since the beginning of 2018. The last case has been reported in the department of Putumayo, where campesino leader Otto Valenzuela has been killed. He was a pioneer in the promotion of the replacement of illicit crops. There is outrage in the area since they say the community called authorities and they were told there were no police forces to come so far away. The victim was also a relevant figure in the organization of the community to fight for their rights. The UNCHR mission in Colombia has urged the government to take measures to protect social leaders in the country.
That was Paola Fernandez from Colombia. At least 12 people have died in landslides in the center of Colombia. Another 4 people have been injured in Marquetalia municipality. The landslides were a consequence of heavy rains that have raised the area for the past 3 weeks. Coming up, more stories. Meanwhile, you can follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my personal account at Carla G. Telesur. We'll be back. Welcome back. In Chile, hundreds of students continue to march against the Safe Classroom Bill promoted by President Sebastián Piñera. The protesters say the proposed law seeks to expel all students who raise their voices against the government, and they see it as a copy of the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. Although the Senate has described the bill as unconstitutional, President Piñera vows to move forward with his proposal even without support. Student movements say they will continue to demonstrate.
We want to say in a strong and clear voice that we will not allow this law to be passed, and we will go to the street to reject it whenever it is necessary, because it generates own integration, repression, beating the critical thinking of the classroom.
The Dominican Republic and the European Union have strengthened ties during a meeting in Santo Domingo. Dominican Foreign Minister Miguel Vargas and the Latin American and Caribbean External Action Director Hugo Sobral presided the forum. They stressed the relevance of cooperation between the two regions. During the meeting, they examined topics such as human rights, political parties, and funding. Economists in Cuba held a public hearing in the city of Havana against the U.S. imposed blockade. They called for its end. The National Association of Economists and Accountants hosted this forum, which was presided over by lawmakers. The financial experts pointed out that the blockade has cost the island's economy over $9 trillion. In 3 weeks, the UN General Assembly will vote on a new draft resolution on the need to end the blockade.
Cuba is not formally at war with the United States, and it is not the reason of any national emergency of the United States. Cuba is subjected to the most brutal criminal and genocidal law of all time of the United States of government. It demands the lifting of the blockade. Largely, this happens because Mr. Trump fortunately has no family to attend in Cuba, because he would probably feel that thousands of Cuban families feel every day with these problems, which sometimes they're not aware that they are by the effort of our country. Not only the health system because of the problems and the concerns of each Cuban.
Now to Venezuela, where the foreign minister has criticized what he called interference in his country by the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. After meeting the Chilean president on Wednesday, Merkel offered German support for a regional initiative on Venezuela. In a series of tweets, Jorge Arreaza regretted the German leader's, quote, subordination to the Trump administration and its desire to impose a blockade on Venezuela. He demanded that the German government respect Venezuela's sovereignty. If Germany wants to help, he said in a tweet, it should use its influence to help lift the economic measures against the Venezuelan people. Bolivia's President Evo Morales has announced workers will receive a double bonus. Morales said economic growth can guarantee the double bonus that will be paid to public and private workers. The bonus is called Effort for Bolivia, a recognition to Bolivian workers. Police have intervened in Peru to prevent clashes between pro and anti-Keiko Fujimori supporters. Both rallies gathered outside the police station where the leader of the Fuerza Popular and the daughter of former President Alberto Fujimori is being detained. Keiko was arrested for alleged money laundering involving the Brazilian construction company Odebrecht. Colombia has recovered 38 ancient artifacts. This pre-Columbian ceramic pottery was plundered over a decade ago by a private collector in the United States. The FBI recovered the artifacts that were illegally taken. The Colombian Institute of Anthropology and History will try to identify all the pieces. With just a few days to go until the Vatican declares Monsignor Oscar Romero a saint, social movements in El Salvador are demanding justice for his murder in 1980.
The Catholic faithful in El Salvador, along with human rights organizations, unions, and citizens in general, are demanding that a judge in the capital speed up the criminal case against the murderers of Monsignor Romero.
We haven't been able to move forward with the case. We have talked to the judge about this, and he told us he has too much work.
Monsignor Romero was killed on March 24, 1980, as he celebrated Mass in the Church of Divine Providence in San Salvador. A truth commission set up under the peace agreements attributed the murder to death squads commanded by the now deceased Army Major Roberto D'Aubusson.
There is an absence of justice for 38 years. The state has neglected the victims of the armed conflict, and I say victims because Romero is the first of those victims of the savage repression carried out in the 70s and 80s.
3 days ahead of his canonization by Pope Francis in the Vatican, the plaintiffs say the sanctity of Romero will not be complete until those who took part in his murder are brought to justice.
The judge should issue a formal request for Interpol to locate and deport Captain Alvaro Saravia. That is one of the demands being made. Another is to take steps to reconstruct the crime in which Monsignor Romero was killed.
Although there is joy at the canonization of Monsignor Romero on October 14th, the impunity enjoyed by his murderers leaves an unpaid debt of justice and reparations.
The third most powerful storm ever to hit the United States, Hurricane Michael, has been downgraded to a tropical storm after causing damages in Florida. When Michael made landfall, it had winds of 250 kilometers per hour, which have since been reduced to 110. At least 6 people have been killed due to the storm. A state of emergency was declared in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. The authorities have urged residents to prepare for heavy rains, as Michael is expected to intensify again over the weekend as it moves further north. We'll take one last short break, but stay with us. Thank you for joining us again. Young survivors in a small school in Yemen's Sada province remembered their classmates who were killed in the air attack that hit a school bus in August. They returned to Al-Fala school and took part in emergency drills. For many, the wounds are still quite fresh. Some attended classes in wheelchairs, and they say they fear more attacks. According to a recent UNICEF report, nearly 500,000 children in Yemen dropped out of school since 2015, when the war began in the country.
We tell to the enemies that the blood of our classmates will not be in vain, and that we avenge them by getting an education. We'll avenge them by learning. Thanks God, you saved me from these attacks and from the hands of this terrible crime. We are sad that after losing our dearest classmates and worrying that the enemy will hit the school,
Palestinian fishermen say Israel's prohibition on fishing in the Gaza Strip is severely restricting their livelihoods. They're strongly rejecting the increase in security which the Israeli regime imposed along the maritime border. The fishermen say this is seriously affecting their sector. They also say that it's affecting their lives. Some have decided to take the risk despite threats from the Israeli Defense Ministry to sink any Palestinian boat that leaves fishing ports.
the fishing business is slow. I'm working hard with my kids to make ends meet. Altogether, there's 10 of us and I can barely earn a living. We go out to the sea, but every day we encounter problems. We're often targeted, so we don't have a good haul. It's an unbearable situation. We cannot continue to live like this.
At least 11 people have died after a bus and a truck crashed in Russia. Emergency authorities have said other 7 people are injured. Emergency services were rapidly dispatched to the site to rescue passengers who were trapped in the bus. Early investigations suggest that the truck drove into the opposite lane and collided with the bus. Syrian Kurdish forces say they are holding 900 foreign Islamic State fighters. They say the number of foreign jihadists detained has sharply increased.
They joined a terrorist organization which is carrying out terrorist acts around the world, in the Middle East, Europe and the United States, Asia, everywhere in the world. So in northern Syria, we are confronting an international problem. They must be judged in northern Syria, and then each state must take care of its terrorists, taking into account the international laws and rules recognized by the UN.
And let's move on to another story. Syrian Kurdish forces say they are holding the 900 Islamic State fighters. We already said that story, so we'll go to a different one. Let's go to Japan. Okay, we are seeing the story now from the Gaza fishermen. So fishermen in the Gaza Strip are struggling as Israel has reduced their fishing zone, as we've told you before. Israeli soldiers have reduced this fishing zone to 3 miles. Authorities said the decision followed Palestinians' attempts to harm police forces across the border. Traders in Gaza's fish market say prices have risen because supply of fish cannot meet the demands of 2 million people living in the enclave. The first tuna auction was held in the new fish market, Tsukiji, in Tokyo, ending an 83-year closure. The market also attracted thousands of tourists for the auction. Many of the traders oppose the relocation, but others hope that this will create a more modern site. The purpose of the relocation, despite its deterioration, was to expand and present a cleaner place.
Here you think you're coming to buy fish, but in fact it's about human relations. And that's what determines everything. The respect is mutual, as are trust and admiration. You have to admire and you have to have love. They have to accept how I cook, and I need to accept what they supply.
It still hasn't really hit me, but I feel increasingly sad as the day approaches, and also worried. And after this anxiety, I also feel angry, as I wonder who this move is for and why it is necessary.
China maintains that it never engaged in any supposed economic invasion to the U.S. Gao Feng, the spokesperson from China's Trade Ministry, was responding to the accusation recently leveled by U.S. Vice President Mike Pence. Gao says Washington's accusations are excuses for implementing its commercial unilateralism. He also assures that China respects the principle of mutual cooperation in foreign trade. This as he urged Washington to instead create opportunities for bilateral economic development.
China has always followed to the principle of mutual benefit in foreign economy and trade cooperation. China is not committed and will never participate in the so-called economic invasion. Instead, we hope to share opportunities with all economic and commercial cooperation partners to achieve common development, jointly build a global economy and drive global economic development.
Modern art and antiquities are blending in a new museum in Lebanon. A contemporary sculpture of a mortar missile is displayed alongside millennia-old statues. The exhibition includes 60 contemporary art pieces and around 400 antiquities from Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, and Yemen. The museum's founders wanted to be a beacon of hope in a region overshadowed by religious extremists and violence. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. For this and many other stories, as you know, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find all our latest information. We can keep track of what's happening in politics in Peru as well. So go check it out. And you can also follow us on social media. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and until the next time, thank you for watching Telesur, connecting the Global South.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on culture, innovation, conservation,